Welcome to Morning Message for September the 22nd. As you can probably tell from the scene behind me, this really is September the 22nd. We're expecting Teddy, a hurricane or a post-tropical storm, to arrive sometime today, and we've been hearing warnings for probably about 5 or 6 days. And so we've cleared the deck. We've prepared as much as we can for this coming storm. So it really is the 22nd. I wanted to talk today a little bit about something that happened many years ago. It was actually just before my sister was married. She married Mike, and I decided that for a wedding gift I would get them a quilt. I wanted to get a really nice quilt, and there are a lot of things to consider when buying someone something as sort of big and present as a quilt. I didn't want one that was so sort of ostentatious or bright or ugly that it would end up in a drawer and never get used. I wanted something that would be there, but I didn't want to be the one who determined the decor of whatever room it was in. I didn't want to get one that was so fancy that it was something you wouldn't use as a quilt, but just hang it on a wall or something like that. I wanted something practical that they would like and that they would use, and that didn't stand out too much in whatever room it happened to be in. And I spent some time thinking about it. In fact, in Mahone Bay, there is a store called Suttles and and I would go in there quite frequently. And the people there knew what I was doing. I mean, I told them what I was doing, trying to find exactly the right quilt to get my sister and future brother-in-law for their wedding gift, and all these different things that I was thinking about. I went in, anytime I was in Mahone Bay for probably about 6 or 7 months, I would go in, I would take a look, and I would start to narrow it down to whatever quilt it was that I eventually got for them. So a lot of work went into getting that quilt for Penny and Mike. Somewhere in that time, it dawned on me that I didn't know what the word Suttles meant in the title of the store, Suttles and Sea Winds. And so I did a little bit of research to try and figure it out. And it turns out that a subtle is a form of measurement. And depending on the circumstance, it could be slightly different measurements. So it might be the measurement that's taken of a product after the container or the weight of the container has been subtracted. But essentially, any large shipment would be weighed before it was put on a ship, and it would be weighed after it was taken off that ship when it got to its destination. It was probably a measurement taken to protect the shipping company, so that they actually delivered the things that they were intended to deliver in the correct amounts. But all sorts of things could happen to something along the way. The ship could have taken on some water, and the thing that was being transported became heavier. It could have been that some of the stuff was lost overboard in the journey, and the stuff was lighter when it got to its destination. The significance of something like this might be if you were in Manchester in the UK and you had the contract to make cotton sheets for the hospitals. You would have to know how much cotton to order from New Orleans in order to fulfill that commitment of making those sheets. So you'd have to have some idea on a regular basis of how much, knowing that some might get lost or some might get ruined along the way. So you would have enough usable cotton to make those sheets to fulfill that particular contract. So I think that was probably the real reason for wanting to take this extra measurement when delivering large amounts of goods from one place to another. This is the long way around. for me to affirm something that I think is at the core of our faith, and that is God's love. God doesn't measure God's love. There's no subtle weight taken when it comes to God's love. The psalm tells us that our cup runneth over with God's love, with God's forgiveness, with God's mercy, with God's call to justice. Our cup runneth over. God's not taking any measurement. God is giving us as much as we need of those things, and more besides. Our cup runneth over with God's love and mercy. And that's the good news. That's good news that Jesus Christ proclaimed. That's the good news that we proclaim as followers of His. And my hope and prayer for all of you today is that you will indeed feel that love and mercy of God, that it does indeed runneth over in your life. I hope that this post-tropical storm is just kind of a big wind and a big rainstorm, and doesn't cause too much damage across our diocese, across the two provinces of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, and that all of us stay safe in the midst of all of this. We've battened down the hatches, we've cleared the back deck, and we're ready for this storm. God bless. Amen.